Greetings. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning. Welcome. This is the Human Butterfly Effect podcast with RDW. What up, though? This is yours truly, RDW. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode. I'm very excited to have each and every one of you here. Hope you guys are having an amazing week. I know I am. It's been going pretty good, right? Ready for the spring? We set those clocks forward. Spring is on its way. Y'all ready? It's time to do some spring cleaning. Mentally, physically, emotionally. Time to clean out the cobwebs. Speaking of spring, why don't we just hop on over there like a little bunny rabbit to our website at www.rdwcreations.com. Again, visit us online at rdwcreations.com. We have a lot of things over there you'll be interested in. Just take a few moments, a few clicks of the fingers. Get on over there and check us out if you haven't already. And we're all across social media. Google RDW Creations and look for the butterfly. So again, thank you guys for joining me. Again, this is the Human Butterfly Effect podcast with RDW. I am yours truly. Let's hop on into our episode. So I got a question for y'all. We're going to get the timer started real quick in this episode. I want to know, to the parents out there, to the educators, grandparents, community members, the village, I'm talking to you. Got a question for you all. How can we make our Gen Zers happy and successful? What things can we do as parents, as loved ones, as educators, as community members, as strangers, as coworkers, as friends, as acquaintances, as leaders? What can we do so that Generation Z builds happiness and success? That's the question I have for you. This is one of the most depressed, anxiety-filled generations we have had, statistically speaking, in a while. They're unhappy. So what can we do to help them? You know, when I talk to young people, and let me just be frank here, I don't have not one baby, okay? Let me just put that out there. I don't have not a child that I have reared or brought into this world. However, you don't have to have kids to know about kids. Now, does that mean I know everything? Absolutely not. I'm not an expert. However, I have worked with kids. I've had interactions with kids through my company. I've also interacted with children or young people professionally through my job. So I have some experience. And then, in my professional or personal rather endeavors, I've dealt with kids. Stop thinking because people don't have kids, they don't know nothing about kids. Y'all parents out here struggling to have a hard time, and y'all got kids. You're the parents, and you still don't have all the answers. So that should tell you something. Maybe it takes more than being a parent to come up with solutions, and that's not to demean anyone. That's just to tell you that I have something of value to say to this conversation. We all should. We all should. I want to read to you portions of an article that I found on Forbes magazine. This article is from last year, but I think it's still relevant. April 14th, 2024. And the title says 5 skills Gen Z Must Build for Happiness and Success. The author is Tracy Brower. She's a senior contributor over there at Forbes. And the article starts out: It can be especially tough to be a Gen Z today, coming of age in a world that is polarized and high pressured, one which demands skills that Gen Zs may not have had a chance to develop in the same way as previous generations. In addition, as Gen Z enters the workforce, they have no point of reference for how work is to use, or excuse me, let me repeat that. They have no point of reference for how work used to be. In other words, they don't have any experience. Not that the past was ideal, but they're joining a landscape of work that is ambiguous and unpredictable. At the same time, it is demanding, difficult, and even draining. In fact, 91% of Generation Zers reported feeling stress. 98% say they felt burnt out. This was results of a Cigna study. And I've also read other studies about this being the most depressed and anxious generation. They say that COVID really impacted the Generation Z because during that time period, that was their formative years, and that they missed out on a lot of skills. What do you guys think, parents? Do you think your kids missed out on skills from that COVID? I want to just say something about COVID. I don't know. We still talking about COVID. COVID was 5 years ago. And I understand as it relates to time, relatively speaking, that's a short time frame. But I don't understand. I didn't understand it then why we were so freaked out about COVID. I do understand the impact that COVID had. I do understand that was the first time in our generation, and likely, the recent ones that preceded us, that we had a disease that caused a complete shutdown of life, essentially, because everything was closed, right? Businesses was closed, everything was closed. Wasn't really nothing open but the hospital, right? And the grocery store, essential services. So I understand that it might have been shocking or jarring, but I don't understand. I really don't understand. For me, COVID was one of the best periods of my life. And I'm not talking about financially or materialistically speaking. For me, it was a great reset. I think some people even refer to it as that. It was a time for me really to examine what was important in my life, what was lacking in my life, what I needed to work on, what I need to let go. Sometimes we're so caught up in the hustle and bustle of life, of living, that we forget to remind ourselves of what's really important. And I think that's what this article is touching on, some important skills that Generation Z, in fact, all of us probably could benefit from. The first thing they say they need is relationship skills. They say that Gen Zs report that they lack friendship, and fully 25% of those in the youngest working cohort have no real friends at all, or only one close friends. It's logical, the article continues, they would struggle because they have been growing up communicating through screens and relating from a distance, even before the pandemic. Now, I want to pause there. Have you ever noticed that social media really isn't social? They call it social media, but there's really nothing social about it. You use technology, a piece of equipment, to type words to communicate with something, or you use, or someone rather, or something, because you might be talking to a robot. You're not authentically or organically or genuinely forming relationships with people. You're forming superficial relationships that kind of appease your ego, right? Because that's why people go on social media. They want to post something that go viral. They want to picture that gets the most likes. They want to generate the most chatter for their business or their cause or their family or what's going on. I'm so fabulous, I'm winning all the time mentality. And they constantly check their status, their updates, their likes, right? Well, how are they doing that? They're not talking to people, not for real. They're looking at a screen. You go to work, half of these kids can't even put their phone down. Ain't they get an attitude when the manager say, "Get off your phone." Yeah, hell, man. As if they don't understand what work is really about. Do you understand the purpose of work? It's not playtime, it's work. When you get that paycheck at the end of the week or every 2 weeks or once a month or however you get paid, that's for work. Your boss not giving you money because they like you, and they may like you. That's not why you're getting paid. They want you to do something. When you're on your phone checking social media on TikTok, bulling around, you're not working. So stop getting an attitude because your boss said you to get off your phone, which leads me to my next point here. This article talks about relationships that Generation Z needs to learn how to develop. You know, when I meet people, I often use the expression, I want to build something with you. And I recognize I need to choose my words more carefully because everybody doesn't know what that means. You have to cultivate, aka create the life that you want. So, in other words, if you want to have a friend, you can't just hope and wish and click your heels together and say, I have a friend. You actually have to talk to someone. And when you talk to them, you can't just say, I want a friend. You actually got to ask questions, get to know them, spend time with them, learn to like them. You have to build a friendship. It's not automatic. You have to build a relationship. You have to cultivate a positive mindset, a thriving livelihood. Those are things you have to create. And so when we talk about Generation Z's needs to work on their relationship skills, what about their relationships with their parents? I'm getting older, okay? I grew up a lot different. My parents were not my friends until I was an adult. You know, I want to just throw this out here before I jump into the next thing, but again, this comes from somebody who don't have kids, so don't y'all attack me. But I'm giving you a different perspective because I deal with your kids. I teach your kids. I interact with your kids. I entertain your kids. I work with your kids. So I think my opinions are valid, and they're not just my opinion. Again, I'm reading from an article from Forbes, and we just kicking it, right? But when we talk about relationship, what type of relationship you all parents have with your children? When I grew up, my parents was not my friends. I had rules, I had responsibilities, I had chores. And I hated my mom for it. I even wrote about that in my last book, You Don't Know What I Have. I hated her. Thought she was the meanest person ever. Wasn't until I got older that I began to understand why she was doing those things. She's trying to teach me some responsibility, trying to teach me in life you have to do something. You can't just be on your phone all day. Back in my day, we didn't have social media. We had social media, but not in the form it is today. So we was on our phones. You know what I'm saying? No, you can't sit on your phone all day. You can't sit in front of TV all day. You had to do something. But nowadays, these parents, y'all so friendly and googly goggly with your kids. Y'all kids don't have no responsibility. A lot of y'all tell the truth. They ain't got to do nothing. And then you don't understand now that they're 25 or 21 or 30 years old while they laying around your house. They don't help you with nothing. It's not automatic. You have to cultivate that relationship, right? Those boundaries, those guidelines, those expectations. Another thing Forbes says that Generation Z need to work on is their conflict management skills. The article says, unfortunately, many people believe all disagreements is harmful, but it is unrealistic to think that life can be free of conflict. In actuality, the best innovations are often the result of lively debates resulting in fresh ideals. Excuse me. Let me slow down here. Generation Zs need skills in tolerating different points of view and valuing disagreements, which can be a source for learning more about others' perspectives and also their own. There is strength in being able to suspend judgment and understand another person's stance. And then to being able to stand firm or compromise based on listening and learning. To enhance their skills in tolerating and even embracing constructive conflict. Generation Zs can seek out those who hold different views, build skills in asking questions and listening, develop the ability to respect people broadly. And the next thing I'm going to jump right into it is accountability. We talked about that. This article says a sobering 68% of business owners find Generation Zs to be the least reliable of all their employees. And a significant number of Generation Zs themselves reported that they are unengaged at work. Unfortunately, the article says as Generation Zs were brought up, they may have been rewarded for outcomes rather than for effort. And this reinforced a preference to avoid hard things. What did I just talk about? Giving y'all kids chores, responsibilities, guidelines, expectations. What kind of child? I want to pose this question. What kind of child, if you give a child, any child, everything that they want, allow them to do whatever they want to do, what type of adult do you think this becomes? Now, I know a lot of y'all out there saying, she got a lot of nerve. She ain't got not one baby. No, I don't. But I look at kids a little differently than most of you all. When I hear parents talk about their kids, you guys talk about them like they're a piece of property. These my kids. Ain't nobody gonna say nothing to me. I go hard for my kid. Ain't nobody say nothing about them my kids. Them my grandbabies. Them mama boo boo. Can't nobody tell you nothing about your kid. Not the teacher, not the police, not the neighbor. And I'm piggybacking on this article because it talked about accountability, conflict management skills, and relationship skills. That's what this article said. So you know, where do we think they get this stuff from? Do you understand that we're all somebody's kids? Every person you pass today, every stranger on the street, on the bus, on the subway, on the plane, on the train, at the resort, in the bar, at the hotel, at the corporate office, down at line at the city county bit, wherever you are today, every single person you see is somebody's kid. What's your point, Rosie? My point is that when you're creating kids, what you're creating is society, future generations. In other words, these are not your personal pieces of property. This is literally how you populate society. So, what you teach them or your lack thereof has a direct contribution to the world we live in. You can't solve every problem by beating somebody's ass. And trust me, I grew up in an environment like that. Every problem we want to go for bad. What this article talk about? They don't want to listen. They don't want accountability. They don't know how to deal with people. Where do you think they got that from? Just saying. This article goes on to talk about sense making, how Generation Zs need to develop a proper sense making of everything, all the information that they're bombarded with. They also need to develop their resilience, their well being, and their esteem. Remember, I talked about most Generation Zs have some type of mental challenge, anxiety, depression. used to drive for Uber, and I used to have a lot of young people in my car. And as you might imagine, I would engage them on a variety of topics because I'm inquisitive and I don't view my life as just my own. I understand that I have the ability to impact someone's life if it's just one person, impact their day. So I move with intention, right? So this is why I'm talking to these kids. And I found out that most of my riders, the young people, Generation Zs, they all suffered from some type of, they were afraid of people. Like they didn't want to talk to people. I remember I was taking this young man to a job interview. Now he's going to work for some type of business where he got to deal with people. Okay. Customer service somewhere, right? And he's in my car talking about he don't like people. But you got a job dealing with people. I mean, make it make sense. How do you not like people? I saw on the news the other day they got this new thing coming out, and this really don't, this doesn't relate to Generation Z per se, but I'm just throwing out here. They got this new thing where people dating online like a computer. Like, they have this robot, but it's online and they can have conversations with it like it's a real person, but it's a robot. And so they developed these relationships. So they had these online girlfriend and boyfriends. I'm not talking about like a person you meet, a real person you meet online. I'm saying this is what this app does, or website, something. And there was this guy talking about he had a real girlfriend. His girlfriend was on there. Yeah, I know he got a girlfriend on TV. And they were like normalizing this. No wonder we don't know how to talk to people. How do you sit in front of a screen all day, every day? And I know some of us have to do that for our work. We have things we have to do. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about these kids. We didn't substituted the pacifier, the old school pacifier for a phone or for a laptop or for a TV show. Because we don't have to want to be bothered ourselves. We stressed out ourselves. There's a lot going on. It's understandable. But I asked the question, what type of adult do you think that creates? What type of world do you think that creates? 60. Let me go back to the stat about employers. This is from Forbes. Forbes, a very reputable organization, said a sobering 68% of business owners find Generation Zs to be the least reliable of all their employees. And even the Generation Zs reported they're unengaged at work. This was according to a Cigna survey. Cigna is a major healthcare provider. So these ain't just under the table, off the grid organizations. I had an adult say to me once, they asked the question, they said, how do you know what the truth is? How do you know what the fact is? Oh, it's so hard. There's so much information. How do you know what's real, what's fake? How do you know what's right, what's wrong? And I know a common thing with some of the young people I have interacted with is, how do you know what to do when you weren't taught what to do? How do you know these things if you don't have anybody to teach you these things? Well, if you happen to be a Generation Zer, Auntie Rosie, I'm gonna be your auntie for this podcast only now. And I'm gonna give you a secret to life that maybe your parents, maybe they have, but maybe they have not told you. I want you to listen real closely. I'm gonna give you the secret to being an adult, the secret to adulthood. Are you ready? The secret to adulthood is learning how to make your own decisions. In other words, your parents can't teach you everything. The school can't teach you everything. Your degree is not going to teach you everything. Social media can't teach you everything. You have to do the work, my friends. You have to get out there. Don't tell me you don't know. Remember, I talked about cultivating the life. Think about your life. Think about your future. What do you want to have? Don't think of it in terms of I want a house, I want a car, I want to dress like this, I want a new pair of Jordans or and all this. I'm not talking about that. Think about what type of life, what type of person you want to become, what type of people do you want to be around, what type of community do you want to live in, and then think about what you got to do to get there. I'm not talking about things. You want to be a more positive person? You don't have an idea where to start. Well, how about instead of hopping on Facebook or TikTok, you ask Siri or you ask Alexa or you ask Google, I want to be more positive. How do I do that? I guarantee you it'll come back with a list of websites, books, organizations. See, it's about choices. That's what adulthood is really about, learning to make choices. When you're a child, when you're a babe in the womb, all the choices and decisions are made for you. But when you truly step into adulthood, that's when you learn to make your own choices, including the type of life you want to have and the type of person you want to become. It's not automatic. You got to cultivate it, you got to build it, you have to create it. And you do that one step at a time. So stop using the excuse. We had slaves out here that didn't know how to read. Stop talking about that was ancient. No, history for black people, slaves, not having access to information and resources, that's a lot more recent than you think. All you have to do is do a basic math equation. Take your current year and subtract the year when black folks, minorities, women, when they really got their rights. I'm not going to tell you that year because you should know that if you were paying attention in school. And if you don't, Google it. What year? And just do a basic math equation. You'll find out it's not ancient history. And so some of the very things that we enjoy today is because of those who came before us. That's why history is important. And if people who could not read or write didn't have access to a computer, let alone a book or information, i.e., resources, and they still had the wherewithal to say, I want better for my life, I want to learn. Why can't you say that in 2025? See, it's about the choices you make. I bet your parents probably never really told you. They told you to choose right from wrong and all of that. I'm not talking about that. But the life that you want to lead, the future that you want to have, the person you want to become is up to you. It ain't up to mama, daddy. It ain't up to your past. It ain't up to your teacher. You're grown now. That's what adulthood is really about. And to be honest with you, it's something all of us can work towards learning. We all can build better relationship skills, conflict management skills. We all can be more accountable. We all can learn to make sense of what's going on. We all can develop resilience. Those are skills that benefits all of us, not just Generation Zs. But we know those Generation Zers, they got some challenges out here. Y'all know I ain't lying. And we got people that ain't Generation Zers that have problems. But this podcast was about them. How do we make them happy? How do we make them successful? Well, first thing we could do, start treating them like adults. They got to pay that iPhone bill themselves. Maybe they'll learn the purpose of going to work, but they know they can go back home. They ain't got to pay no rent. You ain't got to pay no DTE. Mama got you, right? Because that's my baby. Better nobody say nothing to my baby, my child, my baby. That's what y'all be saying. Y'all better be wrong as the day is long. Well, maybe if we change it up, maybe we'll help them with some things. That's why they're anxious. That's why they suffer from a lot of these mental challenges because they don't have these soft skills. Well, we build that up as opposed to your pocketbook or your makeup or your hair or your wardrobe or your car catalog or your shoe catalog. How about build from the inside out, right? So anyway, thank you all for listening again. This is the Human Butterfly Effect podcast with RDW. Yours truly, RDW. Share us with a friend. Tell them to check us out. We have other podcasts on our YouTube channel at RDW Creations. Check us out. We all over the web. All you got to do is search for the butterfly. And on that note, bye bye.